Good morning. Welcome to our open seminar. Today, we have many people that are not members of our community of practice. We would like to welcome you to the MetLAC community of practice. We have an interesting webinar. There's lots of interest in knowing about this topic. Today, we're going to talk about the incentives for organic waste source separation. We're going to talk about the successful strategies for municipalities. As an organizing team, we believe that despite of this being something that we're discussing for a long time, I think we need to learn a lot from one another. For people joining us today, we have simultaneous translation. You may choose the channel of your preference, whether it could be English or Spanish. The presentations would be either in English or Spanish, but as it says there on the screen, you can click on the world icon and you can choose the language of your preference. Now we may go ahead. Okay, so we are going to talk a little bit about the general objective about MetLAC. We are a LEDS LAC platform. This community of practice, which is MetLAC, its objective is to promote and support the development of public policies, business models, and investments projects to reduce methane emissions from organic sources in Latin America and in the Caribbean. So below here, you can see our partners. We have CCAP, ImplementaSur, LEDS LAC, and Global Methane Hub. Throughout these groups, we are hosting this open webinar. We would leave the QR there so you can visit our website. We have public information for all people that are not members, and we also have a private aspect of this for the people that are non-members. So let's talk about the community of practice. We have a year of existence. We have 36 member institutions from 12 different countries in the region, in Latin America and the Caribbean. We have Argentina, Barbados, Belize, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Grenada, Honduras, Mexico, Peru, and Guatemala. And we also have 3 other organizations with a regional scope. So we would like to welcome you to the MetLAC community of practice. I have seen that there's people from bioenergy and also for resource efficiency group. So welcome for all the people that are joining us today. And let's hope that we can learn a lot from these success cases. And for all the people that are not part from any community of practice, we invite you to be part of the community of practice, which actually it's an open space. Mel? Okay, so the agenda for today, we are going to divide this in an introductory presentation on successful strategies for municipalities on incentives for organic waste source separation. This is a talk from Diana Rodriguez. She is the member of the organizing committee. Then we're going to go to the presentation of the experience Buenos Aires Recicla. We have Andrea Pais. She's from the government of the city of Buenos Aires. Then we're going to hold a discussion based on questions and comments from the audience. This will be moderated by Graciela Hernandez from ImplementaSur. And then we're going to go to conclusions. We are going to have a small exercise here. I need you to use your phone for this. Before entering this dynamic, this webinar will be recorded. Since this is open to the public, this will be on our website. And on the chat box, we could receive all the general comments, okay? Questions for the panelists, we would hope for you to submit them through Zoom, through this Q&A section. And the session materials will be available in the MetLAC website. All presentations, recordings will be available for everybody that was present. Mel? All right. We have 85 people connected with us. I would love to get to know you. We have 2 questions on the chat box. We have included the Menti link. You can also scan it through the QR code. Particularly, you would see the questions there. And the most important question would be, where are you connecting from? So try to tell us there, what country are you connecting from? Okay, we have some questions. We have people from Argentina, Peru, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Welcome, Venezuela, Mexico as well. We have Costa Rica. All of these are members of the Community of Practice. We have lots of people from Argentina, as you can see. The bigger the name is, that means that there's more people from Argentina. I think Andrea called all her people to be with us today. We also have Salvador, we have Dominican Republic, we have Guatemala. This is the country that I am currently at. We have Honduras as well. Welcome. This is interesting because this is a Latin American platform, and the Community of Practice members are there, and these webinars help us to discuss all of these topics with our colleagues. Now let's go to the next question. All right, so here we have the question, what sector do you work in? Okay, it could be either the national government, local government, international cooperation, private sector, the academics, and others. So we would love to know, which sector do you work for? This is a good thermometer for us because we understand who is interested, coming from the government. There's lots of people from the private sector. Of course, we know that it is quite relevant to work as a group because the private sector in the end implements all of the measurements. The national government generates the public policies. And the problem of waste management comes from the central and municipal government, but the private sector in the end will be the one that will invest for this project. We have more people from private sector. We have national government. We have people from local government, international cooperation. We also have people from academics. This is relevant because we could have lots of data for the private and public sector. There are other sectors that I'm not able to see, but welcome everybody. And as you can see, we have different groups. So Santiago, thank you for that. And we're gonna be here today. So when it comes to separation of organic waste, we need to remember that the waste management sector is responsible for 20% of the anthropogenic emissions of methanes globally, being one of the first sources. And now we have Latin America and the Caribbean, because this represents 52% of the waste. Only less than 1% is something that we could recover from composting. So the idea is to discuss how we can improve this. We are going to be discussing successful measurements that promote management of waste. And we are going to be discussing a report that it's provided by the speaker. And this is a report from March 2024. And this introduces something related to the municipal programs. Some have introduced these programs throughout 20 years of experience. So all of this have shown us that in addition to reducing methane emissions, we could save costs in transportation, arrangement of the dump sites as well, and we could receive composting products. We also can review some cases. We have practical cases for you to see how it works. And before starting, we would like to remind you that the objective of the webinar is to provide practical strategies that you could use in your own context, whether it is a local government, waste management authorities, in communities, and we hope that you could take some ideas to implement this in your own localities. So I would like to introduce my colleague, Diana Rodriguez. She is a senior policy senior in CCAP, and she's going to introduce this first part of the webinar. Go ahead, Diana. Diana will be doing her presentation in English, so you may join the translation in Spanish for the people that would like to hear this in Spanish. You may do so. So thank you, and Diana, you can go ahead. Thank you, Santi. I don't know if you can see my screen. Yes, we can see your screen. Thank you. Okay, so the idea is, as Santiago says, we would like to introduce the report of an analysis that took place last year when it comes to incentives. Now I'm going to switch to English.
So I'll be talking about incentives that we try to identify at the municipal government level for separating organic waste at source. The report was launched in March of this year, and it's part of the work of the Recycled Organics program in the Latin America and the Caribbean, and you can download it from our website at recycledorganics.org. So we developed the report by basically mapping the successful organic waste management programs at the municipal level in Latin America and the Caribbean. We selected programs, as Santiago was saying, that have been in operation from minimum 4 years and we have programs that have lasted up to 20 years already. So programs that have been really successful and that are sustainably running currently. Then we approach the leaders that are implementing or that design these programs at the local level. So we had interviews directly with representatives from those municipal governments to try to identify exactly what types of incentives really worked to get people to start separating at source, people or other generators in general, commercial generators, residential generators, and see what worked and also what things didn't work to try to learn from those experiences on site. So starting maybe with economic incentives. Of course, economic incentives are very effective and work for all users when you have the ability of reducing fees or reducing charges of waste management. They do promote participation, in particular for commercial waste generators, and they have a very quick impact in shifting behavior. And some examples of economic incentives are reduction of fees, of charges, of waste collection. So for instance, if your generator is able to reduce the amount of waste that goes to landfill by separating organic waste and sending it to other waste management alternatives, then you would have a reduction on the fee that's charged to them of collection or of organic waste management, depending on how it's done in your municipality. Another example is having free services of organic waste management as well. So going from charging something to providing a totally free collection service for organic waste specifically. Other example is more like that disincentive in terms of sanctions or penalties. So you would provide fees for people that are not separating correctly, right? So it's the opposite of reducing fees. It's more sanctioning and having fees and penalties for people that don't do it correctly. And then more innovative examples of trying to give monetary value to organic waste. And so I'll talk a little bit more about this. In general, and as Santiago was mentioning, the source of resources for implementing these types of programs is in many times from what we observed in the cases that we studied is the budgets from avoided costs in transportation of organic waste to final disposal that's now managed in a different way, more locally, or the reduction or avoided costs on final disposals, on operating landfills that now don't have to deal with organic waste that comes from the municipal level. So I thought we would start just with two examples of an example of free services for organic waste management and sanctions and penalties. So the first example is from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I know Andrea might talk a little bit more about this in her presentation. But this is an example of free collection system for commercial generators. So this is mainly focused on restaurants and in certain areas of Buenos Aires. The idea of this program is that beforehand, the commercial generators would have to pay for the collection of their waste. But now the municipality has a program that collects organics separately, and this is a free collection system, so they don't have to pay anything for it. This is a collection route that collects from stationary reception points, so it's not a door-to-door program of collection. People or the generators, commercial generators, have to take their waste to these reception points in their neighborhoods, and then it's collected there. There is a whole registration process to get into the program. And there has been a lot of interest of commercial generators, of course, because they now don't have to pay anything for that collection. So there's a registration process where the municipality goes to the registered site, provides a technical visit to provide information on how to separate waste on site, how to do it, change operations so that you have a specific area for organics. And then they come back again to validate that the waste separation is being done correctly. And then they are approved to participate in the program. Since this is a program that's being rolled out slowly, the municipality doesn't have yet all coverage for all commercial generators in the city. So there's a lot of kind of a waiting list of people that want to really join the program. And this shows how this has been able to promote the interest of the commercial sector in participating in organic waste management separation source. So this is an incentive more of a free services example. Another example more on the side of penalties is in Cajica, Colombia. This is a small municipality that has 98,000 inhabitants approximately. It's a program that has been running for almost 20 years, very successfully. And I brought two examples, one that didn't work very well and another one that's kind of innovative and been working better. So the first one was an educational punishment, kind of. So it was not really an economic incentive or disincentive in this case, but it was more of a punishment, a penalty on an educational side. So it was focused on residents. And when it was identified that a resident wasn't separating correctly, they would have to go to a training on organic waste management. Maybe the punishment would be then to also sweep the central town square or provide training to other residents after they receive the training. So more of an educational perspective of a punishment. Unfortunately, this required, of course, a lot of increased monitoring capacity to identify the citizens that were not separating correctly and then enforcing that educational punishment on them. So it was not very successful because of those demands on monitoring and the capacity of the municipality to do that. But it was a very interesting approach of trying to educate people and having penalties through education. Another thing that's being done in Cajica, Colombia, and more from a perspective of the apartment complexes and community boards that lead just certain communities or neighborhoods in the municipality, is that they have introduced their own fees. So not the municipal level, but the apartment complexes themselves have set fees for the residents that are not separating correctly. So the municipality has worked from the beginning of the program very closely with these complexes and these boards, community boards, where they go to their meetings. That's where they share the information on the program, the benefits for the residents and how it's going to work. And then they have a very close relationship. And in connection, well, the apartment complexes and all those boards are also very aware of everything that they need to do to keep those the organic waste separated until it's collected. And it's also a challenge for them. And they understand that this needs to be set up and maintained in a proper way. So it's important for them as well as the leading persons in their communities to keep a service that's being done correctly and that doesn't attract vectors or that doesn't have problems for the community. So they are very eager to have the system work well. So they themselves started setting up penalties and fees for their own people that live in their communities. So this is a very interesting example of how just collaboration between the communities and the municipality has started doing these types of penalties, just not directly from the municipality, but from other organizations and stakeholders in the community as well, just to support the programs. And some of these incentives and reductions of fees, for instance, on free services, depend on just having a fee that exists. And many of our municipalities don't really have fees that are charged to residents, for example. So there are other types of economic incentives that are very innovative, and I wanted to bring an example in which the municipalities have started giving monetary value to organic waste. And this is an example from Brazil, from a municipality called Santiago. Santiago has around 50,000 inhabitants. It's located in the south of Brazil, and they have created an organic waste social currency, which is called Pila Verde, and this is how it works. So the municipality has a composting plant. They receive organic waste and also green waste, and it's processed and compost is produced. So what the citizens have to do is there's drop-off centers, 9 voluntary collection points across the city, and citizens can drop off their separated organic waste at these voluntary collection points. For every 5 kilograms of organic waste that they bring to the municipality, the citizens receive 1 Pila Verde. A Pila Verde is this currency that only is used within the municipality, and you can see this person holding some of the bills of the Pila Verde. It's designed directly in Santiago and only used and received there. So with this Pila Verde that people receive, they are able to go to local markets, produce vendors from farmers, local farmers, and buy produce, fruits, vegetables, everything that's produced locally by the farmers. In turn, the farmers can use the Pila Verde currency to purchase the organic fertilizer or compost that's produced with that organic waste that was brought from the residents. They can use it in their crops. They can use the Pila Verdes also to buy seedlings or other things or services from the municipality that they need in their day-to-day activities of farming and producing these crops. This fertilizer, the compost, organic compost, is given to them at a reduced price for the equivalent of the what Pila Verde means in the local economy. The fertilizer is of course used in the local production of produce, of food, and then these fruits are grown and sold again to the community. So it kind of completes the sustainable cycle where they have been able to bring this new incentive to the people, which is basically for their waste, they can buy food with their waste, basically. So this is a very innovative and interesting way of setting up an economic incentive without having direct contact with charges for citizens or fees of collection, for example. Other more soft incentives, not so much dealing with economics, but more with recognizing participants and giving them awards or congratulating them for the good work that they're doing in separating organic waste, are here in this slide, and I'm going to talk a little bit about each of them. So one of them is using congratulatory tags or stickers on waste bins. And this is something you can see on the picture on the top left of the slide. This is an example from Olavarria, which is a municipality in Argentina as well. Olavarria is around 120,000 inhabitants, a municipality. And what they did at the beginning of the program, in the earlier stages, was to put these congratulatory tags in the waste bins of people throughout the street. So you can see them there. It said, buen trabajo, good job. So like you're separating very well in your house. And these are tags that are very big, that if you walk through the street, you can see like the green tags in each home. You can visualize where a good home, a home that's separating well is. And to homes that weren't separating well, they would put a red, very visible tag as well, saying like, no, bad job, you need to change your source separation and make it better. So this is honest, and it was very visible again. So you would be able to identify very quickly which house was not separating correctly. And this works on communities that give a strong social importance to how they are perceived by their peers. So in the case of Olavarria, for example, the trucks and the teams, the door-to-door teams would come and look at the waste and then put the tags. And people would come out of their houses. They were very aware of when the truck came. And they were like, no, don't give me the red one. I'm doing a good job. Like, people didn't want to have the red ones like set up in their bins. And it became like an incentive because people didn't want to be seen as a part of the community that wasn't collaborating, being labeled with the red tag. So this is more of a soft incentive that also promoted, in the case of Olavarria, that separation. And this was not something permanent. This was something that lasted a few months, but helped incentivize and educate the population on how to source separate waste in a better way. An alternative to this is tags or stickers. Alternative to the tags or stickers is having frequent user cards. So this can work also when you don't have like door-to-door collection, but like drop-off points. So when you come with your waste to the drop-off point, the person would see that the waste is well separated and give you your points on your card. And as you accumulate points, you can receive small gifts for the correct separation of the waste. So for example, here you can see in the middle top of the slide, a little bin that's from the Costa Rica program in the municipality of Desamparados, which is called Composteros. This is a little bin, a very pretty bin to have in your kitchen to separate the waste, to avoid odors in your kitchen. Or the next picture is just a bag, a reusable bag. So small gifts like this that are connected to sustainability, straws, reusable straws, so things that have the labels of the programs, but that are also connected to sustainable practices, are things that are very valued by members of the community that want to, and that incentivize them to participate and to, or maybe bring new people that haven't been incorporated into the program to try to get these gifts. And also these are things that are sporadically done, not like something that's constant, but that can help people to be more engaged. Of course, these two examples have the problem that they can kind of contribute to waste generation, having tags or having like physical cards that you have to carry around. So an alternative to that is using apps to award those virtual points. So municipalities such as Desamparados in Costa Rica is piloting this year, where to avoid that waste generation, then they have small presents given to people as they collect those points, but it's it's through an app, for example, or through the internet, where they can have those accounts and have the points awarded. So municipalities, as in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, have even bigger gifts. So an annual gift of a bicycle, or they also, the points, they allow them to use the local city bike program. So with their points, they can access the bikes, the municipal bikes, for a reduced fee, for example. So connecting your program with other programs of the municipality and having benefits for people that are separating correctly is also a way to incentivize citizens to participate more actively. Other examples are more of policies that can be implemented at the national level. So things as annual contests or award ceremonies to recognize municipalities or schools, like the case of the picture here that is in Grenada, in a small island in the Caribbean, where it's a national level acknowledgement that has a ceremony that has broad dissemination in press, in local media, and that gives incentives for people that are doing source separation or that have programs that are innovating year to year and that get these awards. These awards don't have to be necessarily like cash prizes. In some cases, it's just the recognition itself that provides a sense of pride and ownership to the community and incentivizes them to do a better job. Just being recognized at a national level brings them a lot of visibility, pride, but also brings them visibility for the international community and brings actually funds for these programs to be funded further or to be expanded further from cooperation agencies, for example. So examples of these are, the picture here is from the Environmentally Friendly Schools Initiative in Grenada, which is more focused like on schools and having schools have programs of organic waste management, composting, local orchards that are connected to feeding programs in schools, and even they give more points or awards to schools that are incorporating the local community into those efforts, so that the community brings their organic waste, participates in keeping the crops, and that gives them more awards. So having that participation of the community also brings an additional incentive for the community to participate and to feel part of a bigger effort. No? And in Costa Rica, for example, they have the Blue Flag, La Bandera Azul program. This is a national level program that has prizes for other things, not only organic waste management, but on sustainability. But it's just the award is just a flag that you can fly in your local building or local government building or main square. And just the pride of having this flag and receiving this flag in this annual ceremony is a very big achievement for municipalities, for governments, for institutions, for the private sector. This award has different stakeholders that can participate. And just having the flag flown and participating in this annual event is an incentive that's kind of a soft incentive, and that people really want to achieve and continue year to year to innovate, because then your flag, you can add little stars each year if you add things to the program that you already have. So that keeps people that have already won the award interested in innovating and in participating and keep improving their programs. So in general, and key messages for recognizing participants. For like long term, these programs that have been there for a long time benefit from innovations on rewarding participants or in penalizing them for inadequately separating waste. Rewards for best practices have better results when they are used sporadically, not constantly. They help adding new participants to the programs, but also enhance ongoing participation of people that are already participating now. And for early stages, it's recommendable, and what we've seen from the case studies is having an invested component of in-person efforts is going to be key to start any of the programs. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in the next slides. So components in the programs of having like door-to-door awareness teams are going to be basic to start any program at the beginning of the program. So disseminating information is one of the tasks or responsibilities of these door-to-door teams that go from house to house, from commerce to commerce, promoting the initiative when it's starting, explaining to people how to do it, etc., providing printed materials and online tools on how to answer their questions. Sometimes if the program also includes equipment that's going to be distributed by the municipality, then these teams will do that as well. For instance, for home composting activities where the management of the waste is going to be in-house, then they can bring the home composting equipment. They can bring the bins to separate the waste in the kitchens. If that's provided, they can bring additives that are used with those bins as well. And these are the teams that conduct inspections along collection routes. And that put for example, the tags that I was talking about earlier on good job or bad job. These are the teams that do that work. So door-to-door teams are very, very important, mostly at the beginning of the programs, and they should be kept along all of the program, but the initial efforts should be very, very robust and very, very concentrated. As time goes along, then the teams can be smaller, but at the beginning, they are very important. This is how they look also in different scenarios where, for example, you don't have a door-to-door collection system, but you have collection points. So if you have approachable vehicles with a lot of colors, these are examples from Argentina, from Cava and from Buenos Aires and from Olavarria, where you have specialized staff in these approachable vehicles that can give information by generator type, by generator profile, that the vehicle has the information as well on it so that it's visible, that it's easy to understand. Important to provide information also on other municipal services. Some people maybe approach the vehicle asking for other services or other things that the municipality may have, other programs. And this helps also bring attention from other participants that maybe they were not interested in organic waste, but want to ask about other things. And if you have the information for other municipal programs, then you can engage them in waste management as well. So that's a strategy that's been used in La Pintana, for example, in Chile for the door-to-door awareness teams. And we saw also from these programs that we studied, most of them and the most successful ones are outsourcing the awareness and communication strategies to companies that are experts on this. So this lifts a part of the job of the municipal government staff, and gives that awareness and communication strategies, responsibilities to companies that have that expertise. So that we saw that as an interesting thing throughout the different programs that we started. Finally, just as a recommendation, just pilots. Doing pilots before the programs are set up is also a tool that helps develop these incentives and designing the incentives, because this allows collecting preliminary information, maybe testing different incentives in different areas of the city and see which work best, which won't work, have interviews with focal groups and identify misconceptions and people that don't want to participate for specific reasons. Then you can add that to the educational information that you're going to design. And then when you roll out the big program, you are directly looking at those misconceptions and clarifying them from the beginning. The pilots can also help select and design methods or beans that are going to be used. For instance, this is an example from Cajica in Colombia, where through the pilot, they designed their bean that we're giving every citizen. So this bean has a little mesh at the bottom where you can collect and take out the leachate that's produced from the waste. They also are using a bokashi method. So they have this bag is an additive that's added in layers to the waste to avoid odors, and also to keep the moisture balance in the waste mass. So this helped design that system in Cajica through the pilots. So pilots are very, very important. And then just to finalize a little bit, in terms of participation in voluntary initiatives from commercial generations, in general, they're not keen to participate in voluntary organic waste management programs because they need to adjust their logistics, the areas for waste separation, aligning operation and collection schedules. So high participation from commercial generators is linked directly to economic incentives. They're not going to participate normally in voluntary initiatives unless, as an exception, when there's upcoming mandatory source separation policies that are going to be implemented. When the government is thinking of banning receiving some type of organic waste, for example, at the landfill, or taking out routes of mixed collection, and they need to be prepared for this, and these are going to be mandatory source separation policies, and the government starts talking to the private sector on how to do this, then they are going to want to start partaking in voluntary initiatives just to get prepared for those upcoming changes. Otherwise, in voluntary initiatives, just the commercial generators are not going to be very incentivized to participate. In terms of residential generators, generating a sense of community to participate in voluntary initiatives is key, linking the programs with community gardens, with orchards, and providing different reception points and alternative options for them to bring the waste, as farmer markets, bringing the waste to neighborhood reception points, or having community composters where they can manage the waste themselves is also good for their participation and to promote their participation. Now to end the presentation, just some key takeaways of the information that I provided. And as I said, you can look more in detail to all of these programs in our report. As I said, economic incentives show good results for all generators, mainly for commercial waste generators, and they have a direct impact on shifting behavior in a very quick way. When you want to include incentive tools in your program, it will depend on the stage. So early stages require more in-person efforts, while long-standing programs benefit from innovations in rewarding or penalizing participants. It's also very important, of course, to actively engage with participants to achieve that behavioral change. Continuous engagement through these door-to-door awareness teams, through social media, apps, to sustain that participation is going to be also key, even for long-lasting programs. And then just to mention that just successful programs already exist in small municipalities in the region. They have proven to have positive effects on changing socioeconomic behavior, and they can definitely be replicated across the global south. So there's hope to expand these types of programs all over and use very different incentives, from economic to very soft incentives, to try to get the population to change their habits and separate at source. So that's all I had to share with you today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. I hope that we could change to Spanish. So thank you, Diana, for this presentation. We would like to thank everybody. Melchorita, I don't know if you could start with the presentation. We are going to send you the link of the report, but we will not like to lose the connection with you. For the people that are connected with links, I don't know if maybe you could change your name or maybe properly be connected, because I see that some people or some of the names are repeated. So I don't know if maybe you can change your name in order to identify you. We would like to invite you also to the new webinars that we're gonna be hosting. So please, could you start doing that? And now we are gonna go to, we would like to know from you. What do you think of this presentation, among other things? So if you could start entering the Menti, okay, from your cell phones, take a scan for the QR, or maybe you could click on the link on the chat box. Now, let's have the first question. Do you know other successful experience for separation of organic waste at the source? Maybe you could mention your country, where are you coming from, if you know any other type of experiences. So just, we're a lot of people, so we're not gonna be able to read all of the comments, but we would love to hear from you after this experience. The code is on the right hand. This is for the people that did not scan the QR. Some people say that they don't know anything. Some people say that there's a reduction of cost of cleaning rights on Temuco, Chile. We have people from Brazil, Sao Paulo, Pachavita, Boyacá. We also have the cleaning train of San Pedro in Guatemala. This is important. Venezuela has not reached this type of initiative. This is another comment that we have there. We recommend that you guys start reading the report. In Giro, our clients do this by requirement of certification and or environmental regulations. So we also have Canelones. Canelones is providing containers and composting for families. In Peru, I work with Simba, a company of collection of organic waste to transform them in food for pigs. We also have a comment that says, I work in Chile and Brazil, in both countries, and I participated in organic waste separation projects. I work now in 4 countries in Latin America, and I live in Chile. So I'm delighted to see lots of the comments. We appreciate your comments. Please don't stop commenting, because we're not going to be able to read all right now, because we need to continue with the presentation. But I am going to go to the next question while you finish doing this, and we would like to hear from you in 3 words or less. What would be the main challenge to implement this type of initiatives in your country, in your municipality, in your company? For the people that have not entered the Menti, you could go to the chat box to the right, and in the comment you will find the link. We have conductual change, investment, budget. We have political decisions, policymakers. We believe that it involves behavior changes, incentive, political will or political decision, infrastructure. We have more than 29 answers. For the people that have not answered, please continue answering. And I think that in order to continue to the next slide, you will be able to see a study case. So we would have Andrea Pais. Andrea Pais is the operations manager from new technology in the city from Buenos Aires in Argentina. And we have an initiative that you could see that is called Buenos Aires Recicla, and it's this program. So now I will give her the go ahead. And remember that in the end, we are gonna have the reports that Diana provided, so you can download it. I don't know if you guys can see my screen now. Okay, good morning, good afternoon for all the people in the webinar. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure. I want to share the experience from Buenos Aires on this topic. I would like to also talk to you, benefit from all the shared knowledge. First of all, the VA Recicla, it's a big program that involves recycling. But like I mentioned, we are just gonna be focusing on organic waste. To give you a context, Buenos Aires City has an area of 200 square kilometers, and it's the neighboring other municipalities of Buenos Aires, and to the east to Rio de la Plata. We have 3 million people that live there, but since it's a centric city, we have almost 1 million people that enter daily to this city to work, for example. So that's why we need to manage 6,000 tons of waste per day. We do not handle all of the waste of the city. There's certain organic waste that provides by these generators, but we are sure that more than 6,000 tons of waste go through our management. So there's 41 of this waste that belongs to demolition. 24% is recycling material, 10% are other type of waste, and there's 25% which would be organic. So 22% it's food residues, and 3 related to forestry and green land. So we have more than 1,800 tons per day of waste that we will have to manage. We have different locations and treatment plants. We work with certain amount of materials, but we have to say that we cannot solve all the problems ourselves. We have environmental compound Norte 3. This is outside of the city, and it's an MBT plant. This plant handles waste that are not divided, so it has mixed waste. It's important to mention it because it's an old plant, but it stabilizes more than 600 tons per day of organic residues. This, of course, reduce methanes of landfill. So it's not ideal technology, but I believe that certainly it provides some stabilization. We also have 4 treatments, 4 treatment plants. We have 3 composting centers in different areas of the city. So we process everything to green waste. And we also have organic waste that process part of what would be food residues in the city. To talk about the treatment plant, this is located in the south of the city. This plant has an operation capacity of 30 tons per day. We are now handling more than 45 tons per day. This is a plant which is small compared to the 1,200 tons that we generate per day. This plant was inaugurated in 2016. We were not talking a lot back then about organic waste, but this was the first cornerstone to show that we are able to work like this in Buenos Aires. The plant has a collection area. It has reactors where we provide anaerobic reduction, and also we have the storage area. The material comes from the big generators. It would be supermarkets, restaurants, hotels, dining rooms in hospitals or schools. And we are not contemplating small residues coming from homes, for example. This is a picture of a truck that has dumped the material. We could see that it was properly separated. Before incorporating this, we have performed trainings. So that's why you see that it is properly divided. This is voluntary, by the way, but this is where we notice if it's properly divided. Because there's always questions of should we put eggshells or not? There's lots of myths that we need to tackle, but in this plant, we receive meat, dairy, because for most composting plants, they don't consider those type of food. But since degradation happens inside a closed reactor with air injection and gas extraction, I think that we are enabled to process this type of food. Now, from this collection hopper, what they do is that they open the bags because most of these residues comes in bags, and the bags that we use are transparent because we need to separate them from the garbage, which is the black bags. Also, we try to use bulk containers because we want to use all of the material that we can. Afterwards, these materials are loaded in this orange trucks, and we include wood chips because since this is an aerobic degradation process, we need to compensate nitrogen and humidity versus providing, for example, carbon. So the proportion that we use is 40% of wood chips and 60% of organic material. So after that, we load the material like in the picture below. We have 3 reactors because we can process 10 tons per day. The reactor has a closed case, and these pallets remove the material. We have a cycle for progress, a cycle for resting, and throughout those cycles, the new material starts mixing with the old material. This accelerates the use of microorganisms. The material gets degraded, and that would help with biological degradation. Within the reactor, the material remains there from 10 to 12 days. This is a picture of the structuring material, which is the wood chips. And within the plant, we have the forestry residue plant. This acts as a synergy because part of the material that we chip is used as a structuring material. That's why it is very important to think not only about the organic waste plant for the food, but we also need to know what material we're going to use and where am I getting this material from. These are the wood chips that we receive from the reactors. Once we receive the material, it would be filtered to remove all the chips, and these would be stored between 3 or 4 weeks in order to stabilize the material. For the dimension that we have, we don't have a compost as demanded because we still need to mature this. I think that this works as a soil enhancer. We cannot use it for the farmers, but I think that we can have a lots of benefits from this because it contributes to organic material. Now, the food currently comes from 7 collection routes, and within those areas, we have large generators that we need to incorporate in the routes. This has routes between 50 and 60 routes per day. We noticed with experience that we could include that in each route. And we have 10 commercial areas right now. And it's important to discuss the change that is coming from the city government. We have supermarkets, we have hotels, and from the beginning of this year, we were trying to incorporate the collection routes and public institutions like hotels and hospitals, because within there, we have dining halls. For example, in the city, there's more than 1,000 schools with dining rooms, and it could generate between 70 and 100 kilos of food waste. So we decided to stop offering free service, and we wanted to encourage a free download and include public institutions. That's why we are incorporating 20 schools and 5 hospitals. So we have new challenges. We were not considering, for example, the hard work with them because this is not in the collection area. And there were lots of challenges. The greater challenge is to work with the health center in order to include this as mandatory, right? So this could save lots of future problems because we know that they are obliged to do so. So this is general aspects for large generators, but from the government, we offer different programs for the neighbors, for example. The collection point includes several items. We have mobile aspects and green points that are related to receive and we are interested in providing our organic waste program because this is something that we find as a benefit. The benefit is to find other areas in the municipality and provide our program, because if we need only to discuss organic waste, it would be expensive program. We have more than 40 areas in the city. Most of the areas has a container, organic waste, and different days throughout the week. We could include this for the organic waste plant. And we have 21 areas where we have the composting plants. And so this company is in charge of going through the composting sites, adding, structuring material, providing an idea that the whole process could be performed properly. I have a video that I wanted to show you. Let me see if I can show you the video. I will show the video at the end of the presentation. We can see how is this company operating, and we could see that we're reaching a thermophilic phase. That means that the material for a whole month is going to reach the sanitation of this process. We have lots of neighbors that don't like to do composting. We would like them to separate the organic waste, and we have two in the city, and this is aimed to we would like to train the functional areas, and this is provided adequately, because if we provide the management models that coming from Europe, what they do is that they take the container, they put it there, and the rest days they come to the container. In Buenos Aires, and also I understand that this happens in other cities in Latin America, we cannot do that because the socioeconomic aspects are different. Sometimes leaving these containers could be hard because they could rob these containers. The programs that we're trying to implement in houses, um, the people or the person in charge and the inhabitants in the house, they provide the containers to the collection truck. So of course, this requires extra learning, and the amount of the baskets that we collect in houses is less than what we will be collecting from the streets. But unfortunately, we don't have the means now to collect publicly. So nowadays we have 40 or 50 houses where we collect the organic waste. We know that throughout 4 or 5 months, people end up being a member of the program. Once they start, they never leave, and sometimes they talk to their neighbors and they want to be more. The same thing happens with the neighbors, the people in charge, or the building managers. They understood how to do it. So this is the organic waste. We know that there's lots of complexity, and this would make that the management to be quite hard to do. For example, if we work with forest, we generate green residues that we need to work with. So in total, there's more than 40 tons per day that we administer, and we have one to the east and one to the west. And we try to find areas in which the companies are close to that, and we can collect the residues and take this to these composting centers. We are modifying the contracting documents because they were not obliged to take the material. We needed to work hand by hand with the companies to convince them. So next year, we're gonna have a new document in which one of the things that we're gonna incorporate would be that companies would have to transport this material to the composting areas. So the compost is gonna be provided freely, and the company is gonna use this to take the compost and use that in the parks. We have a conventional technique, which is using the cut and flowers with the leaves, for example, in order to manage this adequately. Throughout the first days, we have microorganisms that are uncertain. These would generate that the thermophilia reach among 3 or 4 days for the thermophilic phase. And this takes place with the station in Argentina. We receive compost, and this could be part of the commercialization as well. Particularly 99% is applicable on the soil, on the parks, on the cities. So this is my presentation. I have another, I have the video, but I don't know if I have time to show it. Will you let me know, please? How long is your video? It's only 2 seconds. Less than 1 minute, sorry. Just give me 1 second because I need to share. I think people want to see the video. How about now? Yes, but it's not okay. We could see how we mix the structuring material, and there is a smoke. That means that we could reach the thermophilia. I would be responding your doubts. I don't know if you want to include this. You have lots of fans here with your presentation, such as Diana. I learned that most of the participants have been quite active in the chat box. I tried to take most general information, and I'm sure that you're gonna be able to do particular questions to all the people that are most relevant. I have a question that it's important to everybody. How do you keep this type of programs throughout times? Maybe we could work with the local governments, and particularly for Andrea, we would like to know how do you provide value for the recycling aspects, and what do you recommend for this to be implemented? And we could have a closure finance. With selling this product, maybe we could cost the operation as such. So that would be the general question. And also, Diana, I don't know if you want to answer from the point of view of what you just introduced, maybe? Well, when it comes to the sustenance of the program, as I mentioned, some of the resources come from avoided cost. But for the case of Pintana in Chile, we estimate that by cost of final disposal in operation of backfill, there's an estimate of $135,000 in avoided cost of residues that are not reaching final disposal. So these resources will be redistributed from before. So we will be investing in these programs, and that will make this to be further sustainable. There's a rate that we will be charging, but this help us to generate the financial stability. We don't see a decrease in the economical cost, but one thing could be that the services are contracted and are the same that are being used for different type of residues. We cannot modify this for year 2028. We are going to be able to adequate these services, and we will have savings. That's why I would like to say that this is provided in the contracting documents. We need to include learnings, because if we don't do this, we don't know exactly what to change. So when it comes to the collection of organic waste, we have to say that we have the companies of humid waste, and it includes transferring backfill, which is 30 kilometers, and the disposal costs. But if the generator separates the organic waste and provides this to the company that offers the service, the company has less cost by less kilometers, because the plant is within the city of Buenos Aires. And we don't need to pay for that disposal. We have the heat port that will be more economical. The large generators are not obliged to do it, but for the people that would like to be um safe with saving more money, definitely it could be a difference for them. Okay, Andrea, I would like to discuss also how do we have the separation of the plans, right? This is something that you mentioned, but from the point of view from the municipality and the audience, right? Well, the plans are requested for operation of private. The government pays a fee, and we pay that for the company that operates the plant. This is by recovered fund to incentivize the company. And this would help us recover a large amount of material. So we want to include this by tons. Unfortunately, the disposal of waste in backfill
for the city of Buenos Aires is not expensive. We're talking about $15 or $20 per ton. This is not an elevated cost for this to be the only contribution on the project. Unfortunately, the operation on the composting plant is way more expensive. And we know that, but this is some expense that we need to do because we cannot take backfill to the sanitary backfill. Thank you for that. And something that motivates us to understand what will be the first steps for this type of collection differential process. How do you recommend to continue with the different participants of the webinar if we can implement this? We need to design work in the level of the neighborhoods, and we could design these incentives. We could see if the people are interested or not. What are the myths that the people would like when it comes to the separation in the source? So in a way that once we expand this, we could have a properly designed. We could recommend the community aspects. We're going to manage municipalities as well. We could have a combination of pilots, and that's something important. You have a north or a horizon saying that this is potentially scaling, because it's not the same thing about scaling something that could be potentially used in other areas of the city. So we need to distinguish the different areas of the city. There's an area of probably you could tackle with domiciliary composting. There are areas where we cannot use composting um, bins, so we will have to see what would be the optimal work for this buildings. We need to implement this, diversifies the projects, because one is not going to provide a response for all the municipalities. We need to go step by step, understand what are the limits of each project to validate this suitably, because we need to understand what are the objectives of the test. Something that was mentioned was what's the main audience. Involvement is important when it comes to socioeconomic areas. I think that we could design a program in a way to have involvement in both cases. For example, maybe we have examples in neighboring communities, and people were discussing, for example, um, by the region of Santiago that has a program that has more than 20 years in functioning, and we could go door by door and involvement. We see these teams of door to door as a link for the community, the different ways of talking to the municipalities, and we need to describe the exchange of information. We feel like a part of the we manage the center of composting, and I think that it's going to generate plantation as well, that is going to help embellishing the community, and it would help us to embellish the areas as well. It has an area that doesn't have much information, so we need to reinforce this for the whole process. We need to use resources and volunteers and going door to door, because that has helping the community to be part of a bigger effort in that community. Maybe there's socioeconomical aspects. We have seen this for socioeconomic aspects as well. We have seen and we have identified that for areas of higher resources, we need to compost more, but this includes the satisfaction of other basic needs. We know where to go, for example, with composting, but this does not mean that it's not necessary to implement this. For example, in the city of Buenos Aires, we're gonna implement this. Some credits in the collection of large generation of 3 vulnerable houses, and we would treat that as well. And something that I am not forgetting, the first neighborhood that started separating this was Barrio 31, which is emblematic in the city of Buenos Aires. We could collect the different fractions of residues and we copy that, but I didn't want to stop mentioning because this is the first area that work with that in the city of Buenos Aires as well. It's interesting for all the experiences that you're sharing, and it's quite motivating because we can implement this type of program. And I know that there's lots of questions, specific questions, so we can discuss the contacts of the speakers, but we could discuss with Diana and Andrea, maybe with the last message that they would like to share. It could be motivation, it could be recommendation, and then we could close this webinar. Thank you. Well, I believe that as a final message, there's lots of examples in the region for municipalities that have reached lots of progress. And of course, we have lots of details according to everything that we discussed. We have cost, edited costs, other strategies that are super interesting on how we manage to incentivize people to separate their houses, because some people they are scared of that. We're seeing that they are interested in participating, and if they are not able to reach there, we need to see, for example, how we can connect with people. So there's lots of strategies to incentivize the people that cannot do that at their home. So maybe recommendation would be to look at these cases because they have decades of functioning, and I think it's possible to replicate this. Because this has been designed in our region, so these are cases that are not coming from abroad. These are cases that are designed to our realities, and it's possible to do so and create a change at the same time. Yes, for the people that are the managers in municipalities, just try to implement this type of pilots because they are very good. And also, it's also easy to start with the large generation errors that provide lots of residues in short places. So for a pilot to start working, we need to have a critical mass. I think that that's quite important. Thank you. Thank you for your time, your presentations. Now, Aida, please help us with closing the webinar, but we are delighted to hearing your knowledge and expertise. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Diana, because this has been a webinar with lots of involvement. We have almost 120 people. So just to sum up with the final conclusions, I think it's important to mention that there's good experience. We're talking about the stickers. We're talking about the composting areas, the applications, the annual contest, awareness. There's lots of things to do, and it is quite important that the ruling entity focus on incentives, changing habits, and just to mention something about the Menti, right? We need to work with the culture, education, financial aspects are key to implement this type of projects, political will. I think that we implement this and it's important to include awareness because some people do not consider all the costs for the infrastructure. So thank you for being here. And like I mentioned, this is an open webinar. Thank you for all the community of practice. And we would like to tell you that the information is going to be on our website on the public side. So thank you, Diana. Thank you to all the team for this webinar, and we're hoping to be in touch with you for our next activities. Thank you. Have a nice day and nice afternoon. Bye-bye. Good afternoon. Bye-bye.